Hello dears, this is the StorySculpt channel, and you are listening to a story Exile by Jamila Hashmi. This story is taken from the book KAHANI, Short Stories by Pakistani Women, edited by Aamer Hussein. Sita of the Indian epic the Ramayana followed her husband Rama into exile, then was abducted by the demon king Ravana, in whose kingdom she chose exile in a grove rather than marrying him and enjoying the privileges of being queen. When Rama eventually rescued her and brought her back to his kingdom, she was forced into exile because the people of their kingdom impugned her chastity as she had lived away so long. Translator's note: the birds fly, beating their wings faster and faster, and the sun has turned yellow and descended to the steps of the large lake of Yukkal. The setting rays turn the color of the Gurdwara spikes a gold-tinged white. And on the other side of the large common, the Desira fair is beginning to disperse. Now, in a little while, the effigies of the demon Ravana will be set alight. People will create a clamor as they run about, afraid, and in the blue twilight the embers will look like descending sparklers. The flames will rise for a long time, and the faces of the people round about will look fearsome in the firelight, as if each one is a disguised Ravana seeking Sita to gloat over her isolation and her second exile. Exile is such a hard thing. But nothing is in anyone's power. Who accepts suffering from choice? I used to say, Bibi, why are you always dreaming? This love that you enjoy, this gaiety all around you, they will slowly lessen. Time reduces everything. But the deterioration comes so slowly that we get used to it. Where's my brother today? This breeze that travels with me, carrying the smell of my birthplace, if it knew where he was too, I'd tell it, ask him, will you, why this pain won't lessen? Even after hauling their burden for years across arduous paths, why do people still dream? Why do they yearn for peace, and why do they love the light? Why was Sita's only prayer in exile to be reunited with Ramchandra? Doesn't misfortune harden people enough to abandon the hope of good times? After all, why can't we love darkness? Why? The Nok tree has been flowering since the year money was born. The seasons change and its branches are smothered in blossom, and the tree bows with the weight of its flowers. The union of the tree and the soil grows deeper. Its roots stretch further into the ground. No one can sever that relationship. Money has grown up now. How soundlessly the footsteps of time have passed me by. Today Barima said to Gurpal, Kaka, take my Bahu and the children to the Desira fair. She hasn't left the village for years. Gurpal said sharply, Mother, when did you ever ask me to take them? It's not my fault she hasn't been anywhere for years. Who can be to blame? When someone calls me Bahu, daughter-in-law, I feel they're abusing me. I've been hearing it for years. Since that night when Gurpal jostled me into the courtyard and spoke to Bari Ma as she sat on her stool. Look, Mother, I've brought you a Baho. Winsome and pretty. She's the best of the day's haul. And Ma approached me, raising the lamp flame. My eyes protruded from hunger and fear. The barefoot trudge, miles long, had left me without the strength to raise a finger. I slumped in a heap at her feet. The cow and buffaloes tethered in the courtyard abandoned their fodder and stood staring at me. Bari Ma looked me up and down several times and said, if Gurpal did a decent day's work, I wouldn't be in this state today. Look at me. I'm almost blind from fanning the fire. And all the maids have stopped calling because our harvest wasn't in on time. Tell me how I'm supposed to handle the burden of this house. If only you'd start farming. I'd be so delighted. Gurpal said, but look, you won't have to put up with the airs and graces of casual labor anymore. You've got your own serving girl now. Set her to the grindstone. Make her draw the water, whatever you like. I'm not obligated to her. I brought you a Bahu. All Sangra was filled with Bahus. But no one sang wedding songs to the beat of drums. Nor did the dancing girls make bawdy jokes or swing their hips and make fun. No one oiled my dust-stiffened hair, nor did any matron groom me. I became a bride, but my hands were not decorated with henna, nor was my parting dressed with bridal red. No palanquin came to take me away. Bari Ma listened to Gurpal, looking at me as if I was a burden that her grandson had picked up somewhere. Then she went inside again with the lamp, and no one bothered about me. What a welcome for a Bahu. From that day to this, I'm Sita. I'm enduring exile and I'm a prisoner in Sangrao. Uprooting their swings and swigging biddies, the swing men are mucking about with each other. They dump their wares so roughly on the donkeys, you'd think the animals were made of wood. The bullock carts of the Ram Leela performers are standing to one side, and the acting boys eat creamy kulfi and pakoras with chutney, unmindful of their shiny clothes. The stains look like dung marks on their colorful clothes. Money stands gaping at them. She doesn't realize she could get lost. What difference does awareness make? If someone's to be lost, they can disappear from a full house. Gurpal is tugging her, and both the boys, tired, crying, demand something from every vendor they see. Is this a fair? Mothers are pushed around in the crowd, nonchalant about their children, and get detached from them. Small children, staring into each face, cry loudly and walk on. Tell me, do people separated in fairgrounds ever meet again? The separation becomes a barrier between the generations. Our eyes are never graced with the faces we long to see just once more. Our paths close up behind us like patterns on the weft and woof of cloth. We cannot retrace our footsteps on the road we have walked. Nothing comes back. And the crowd at the fair moves forward, always forward. Time never returns. I used to say, BB, the moment that's past is erased. It turns to dust. I wouldn't pay attention, getting engrossed, instead, in playing with my doll's house with my friends as soon as I came back from school. Baya tried to counsel me. My father had bought me that doll's house. He bought it from an exhibition. Money tenderly clutches a largish cloth doll. Gurpal watches the crowd above, and Money bends again and again to look at her doll. Both the boys are carrying idols of Ravana and gaping at every passing face with astonished expressions. Money's eyes hold so much love for her doll. Its nose and eyes are defined in crude stitches on its wide cloth face. There's a ring in its nose. Its gold-edged mantle is tacked to her head as she clutches her long skirt. It makes her look like a dancing girl. Now she'll dance. Our route to Sangrao runs past the shores of Lake Yukon. Life's caravan moves on, through twisted paths and straight ones, and tangled foot tracks. Even if we reach our goal along the way, we must keep walking. Forever, forever, even if our feet are wounded and there's nothing in our hearts. The blue dust descends further. I don't know why, the evenings make me indescribably unhappy. One star is leaping, throbbing, shuddering like the wick of a lamp in its blue, empty sea. Its isolation reminds me of my exile. In my isolation, I'm like a lone tree which neither fruits nor flowers. This star reminds me of the ship on which I went to sea. As he prepared to go abroad, surrounded with piles of baggage, Amma's voice was drenched in tears, but she packed calmly for him and prayed. Outside, Baba was involved in all kinds of arrangements and Baya was despondent. Appa paced up and down the inner courtyard with silent footsteps. I pranced around the house, chirping. Who feels the severity of pain before being wounded? We had all gone to see him off at the harbor. Baya went off to sort out the paperwork for Bai's luggage. I'd been over the rail watching the brackish water and asked Bai, why is this water like this? Why is it oil-stained? Why do they have lifeboats here? What is the paddle for? Why the anchor? Doesn't it scare you to see the boats bobbing up and down on the waves? Pestered by the questions, Bai was saying, when you grow up you'll know all the answers automatically, BB. And today, I do know. The ship that doesn't have an or drowns. Boats can even drown at the shoreline. A single wave is enough to drown them. Now that I've grown up and discovered the answers, Bai isn't here anymore. Then the ship's whistle sounded and Baba embraced Bai and ran his hand over his head and said, well then, son, I hand you to God. Baya hugged Bai and soft-hearted Appa cried at everything. Seeing her hiccuping sobs, Bai said, look at Bibi, how happy she looks. What's there to cry about? I'll be back in 2 years. It's not as if I'm leaving forever. Then he hugged me to his heart and said, Bibi, I'll bring you gifts from Paris. Just keep writing to me. I nodded vigorously. The last whistle sounded, and he walked away, easily, nonchalantly, as if he was just going round the corner. We waved our handkerchiefs as long as we could see the ship, and in the evening haze, the reflected lights of the entire harbor swayed in the water. The light of the ship trembled like a lone star, and then vanished. After that, all the lights around me drowned forever. The waves yielded no light. How loudly I'd shrieked, clinging to Amma. Someone in my heart was saying, you'll never glimpse this face again. You'll never manage to see Bai again. My heart was shuddering like that lone star in the west trembling above the blue dusk in fear. Far in the gardens, the darkness of night is spreading its wings. Gurpal has hoisted the 2 boys on his shoulders, and they walk ahead of us on footpaths that look like white lines. And Money walks slowly. By leaping over the ripe crops, they will get ahead of us by 10 fields, and wait. Gurpal is telling the boys the tale of Ravana. How can he know that I am Sita, following him, and that he himself is Ravana? Money says to me, Ma, Sarup's uncle gave her some lovely, colorful clothes. They're silk. They're lovely to touch. Ma, don't you have a brother who could send me nice things? Ma, why won't you say anything? You didn't like the fair, did you? Are you tired? Yes, Money, I'm tired. I've grown old. I've had to walk too far. You're not old at all, Money says to me with confidence. You're like an icon of the goddess, Ma. Barima says so too. How should money know how much I've had to walk? How great the distance is between one life and another? And when we petrify, there's no hope left in our hearts. That's when we become fit to worship. My eyes have turned to stone, watching, waiting for those separated on the path to Sangral. My heart is empty. They call me Lakshmi, goddess of fortune, but still the shackles of pain are so unbreakable, profound and strong, they continue to cling. Money's asking again, Ma, don't you have a brother, a mama for me? What can I say to her? How shall I reply? I stand at the fork, reflecting. I adored Baya, but I was quite scared of him. When he entered the house, my dupatta seemed to place itself on my head of its own accord. I walked more sedately. I contained my hilarity. When I stood beside him, I felt he was the tallest person in the world. My brother with his careful walk, his gracious speech, his beautiful script. He wrote in straight, clean lines, no scribbles in the margin, no ink-stained hands. He'd say to me, Bibi, when you grow up, you'll write like this too. What would my straight-lined, stainless brother think if he were to see me today? There's so much ink in the scrolls of my destiny that there's not a straight line to be seen on the entire page. I never did learn to write neatly. In those days, as I arranged the doll's house, I thought we could live in it. Amma and Baba and I, Baya and Bayanapa too. We'll just live in here. Life is a sweet song. We don't need anything. There's no shortage. When Baya married, I said our home is paradise, a complete and blissful paradise. When I raised my hands to pray in those days, I couldn't think what to ask for. Then, as now, I asked God for nothing. Pain and joy occupy the same point in the circle of life. I crossed the ocean and my dreams of paradise were shattered. All the pieces of my life have spread here and there, and like glass fragments, their jagged edges wound those who pass. Everyone's feet are wounded. There's no one left to cross to the other side. The road sleeps as if it is passing through a cremation ground. There's no one for miles. Who here sees yearning in that other land? How hard it is, the pain of loneliness and life. Gopal is calling me from afar, calling money. We walk slowly. Only sticks remain standing in the cotton fields. People gather up the laughing flowers, take them away. The hairs haven't burst forth yet, nor have the grains formed. Gusts of wind force the tender, flexible plants to bend. You have to bend before the wind. Everyone bends, everyone bows. Barima must be getting restless. An undefined fear for me forces her heart to pound. The path to the land she's thinking of is tortuous. And after the distance I've walked with Gopal, I have no strength to walk further. After all, how much can one keep on walking, especially if there's nowhere to go? Where can I take my wounded heart, the unreddened parting in my hair? Money stands in my way. Money is a barrier between me and the past. How many distances there are between me and my loved ones? How can I peep beyond her? The singing troops are approaching from behind, singing religious songs. The fair, set up on the shores of Lake Yukul, has disbanded and is strewn into the surrounding pathways. Children cry, men speak in loud voices as they pass money and me. Women, wearing their best clothes, holding onto mantles pulled over their foreheads, carry bundles of sweets bought at the fair and clutch their babies at their shoulders as they walk swiftly by on bare feet. Their shoes, tied in their mantles, swing behind them. There's a deep affinity between soil and feet. Why create a barrier? As they grow distant, the people become white stains. A yogi turns into the road to Sangrao behind us, strumming his ektara. How poignant his voice is. He's right, isn't he, when he says we yearn for light, even knowing it is so insubstantial? I don't hear the melody of his strings, just the occasional word from his song. Ma, why are you so quiet? Say something, I'm feeling scared. Money can hardly handle her doll in her attempt to grasp my hand harder. Her voice is drenched in tears. She can't manage another question. Money, too, will realize when she grows up that it's useless to fear the dark. When its sorcery begins, it's irresistible. I used to say, Bibi, water contains power, it hews its own path. In those days I couldn't understand his words. Where does water get its power? The flow of time hews its own paths. When Barima calls to me, I pat the decorative mark into place on my forehead and gently reply, Gee. I try to dispense with her chores swiftly to keep busy so that I don't have time to think and analyze. When I had the time, I didn't have the perception. Now I have that. I have no time. There's always a shortfall and it never goes. This or that always remains incomplete. Today, if I shut my eyes, my heart says, your brothers will be here in a moment, and as soon as Baya sees me, he'll say, Bibi, what's this disguise? That forehead mark doesn't suit you at all. Remove it. Throw it away. Look what I have for you. Let go of all this. Come here, to me. Sit. Vacations are short, and they pass swiftly. Just don't go anywhere when I'm visiting. In the large room, we'd sit, looking at pictures, talk, have tea, warm ourselves on the brazier. When we laughed loudly, Alma would say in a sleepy voice, "You've got to get up in the morning. Go to sleep, children." And Baya would call out louder, "Alma, I live away from home all year, sleeping away my misery. What's the hurry? We'll get some sleep eventually, Alma." And I would think, these times will turn to dust. The paradise we've created from love will be so obliterated by dust and anonymity that we won't find it again, anywhere. Like the pictures, we are a reflection of reality. My heart was always crazy and thought strange, wayward thoughts. My heart has always indulged in fantasies and throbs pointlessly. When I reason with it, it responds with the question, "What do you lose, BB?" No one can control fantasy. What's the harm in dreams if they draw in all those whom you await? I reply that all I have left are my rights. My heart says it is a sin to lose. Hope, but what shall I hope for? Money grabs my mantle and asks, "Ma, tell me why Mama doesn't come here? Can't we go there at Diwali? Ma? All the girls are going. My heart's not in this village anymore, Ma. I didn't really enjoy the fair, either. I'm sad. I want to visit my mama's home. Who can I petition for the address of her mama's house? All the villages outside Sangrao are like dolls' houses to me, without a reality, mere shadows of Sangrao. Everything's shadow. Yet my soul keeps wandering, who knows where, looking for things that were nowhere, longing for voices which I'll never hear again. Why did my heart beat through all the years of heaving baskets on my head, filled with cow dung, milking cows, toasting cowpats for fuel, every time a sudden scent in the wind brought back the notes of 100 instruments drawing near? They would carry me far away. Now I know where they all are. And it's a place beyond my reach. Like the road going to Sangrao, all the roads cut across each other as they pass. What's the point of searching for this city of fairy tales? The tremulous light of lamps, burning inside the open doors of flourishing homes, looks like fairyland. Gurpal and the boys, money, and I walk together now. The satiny heads on the reeds brush my hair. The wind hugs its satin mantle, slowly drifting into slumber. When I disengage myself from my isolation, the road gets easier. Money says, "Ma, I'm tired. I can't walk anymore." The boys cry, and their eyes are drooping with sleep. They can't keep hold of their ravenous anymore, and we move off the path onto the low wall of a field. Money rests her head on my lap. Gurpal is saying, "Just look how foolish women are. So many children have gone missing today. They lose their heads at the fair and get so involved with the Ram Leela performances that they let their children drift off. Children are separated from their mothers even without fairs," I say, stroking Money's head without looking at him. "Will you ever be able to forget that incident?" "Those times were different. It's changed now," Gurpal says softly. How can I convince Gurpal that time is never different and people are condemned to suffer because they can't forget? In my memory, that scene is alive. Fire on all sides. The country had become independent. It had been divided. Father and mother said, "All these people are crazy to be flying to another country. Can pain touch anyone so close to their dear ones?" Amma and Baba were so simple. Pain always comes from one's near and dear. How real is this worry over which strangers hold sway? Life has lost its beauty and everyone's face is masked in a blast of blood. Those who gave charity in the name of Bhagwan or Allah have run swords across each other's throats. Those who would have died for the honor of their sisters and daughters have forsaken their scruples. The words of brothers and intimates have been cut like the shackles of centuries by independence and partition and ground to dust under the feet of the drifters. Amma had told Baba, "We should take the girls and go. I'm frightened. It's useless to trust anyone." And Baba had said with his usual composure, "Bibi's mother, you're worrying unnecessarily, like everyone else. Tell me, what could go wrong?" There had to be a partition. This hue and cry will die down in a few days. Don't worry, all will be well again. In ordinary circumstances, this answer would have reassured Amma, but that day it did not. Our lives and honor are both at stake. "We have young girls," she said. "Listen to me. Send me to my brother." Baba said, "The roads are filled with vagabonds who have strayed out of their villages. They're smashing up vehicles. It's more dangerous to go out. Better you stay quietly at home. God will protect us." Baba must have been worried by the situation, but he didn't ask anyone for help except God. Baba's only fault was to have trusted the old values. So it was that when Gurpal dragged me away as the result of that mistake, I saw Father's white head lying by the bank of the canal. His body was in the water. He had somehow found the strength to rise above his closed eyes and bloodied head and pray. Was this the time for prayers to be accepted, you tell me? A shining spear had pierced through Amma's breast, and she had fallen where she had prayed to God to protect her life and chastity. Appa's screams sometimes come to me even today in the sounds of a storm, but I am as helpless today as I was then. Gurpal was dragging me away. My dupatta was no longer on my head, but then what hope had I of meeting Baya on those roads? If Baya had been with me, would anyone have dared touch me? Could anyone have dragged me bareheaded like this, through the paths of my birthplace where every particle was precious to us? Those paths where my father's blood was spilled. His gray hair was dragged in that dust. And if I could even catch a glimpse of that dust from his head, I'd tell that dust that it was more fortunate than I. I had so many things to say to Baba. How much I had irritated Amma and pestered by. And when I was dragged, without a palanquin, to Sangrao, there was no mother's child to whom I could have turned to cry and lament that I was losing my parents' home with no one here to see me off. After suffering, if there's a longing for peace and a remote hope, then the burden is lightened. And my journey was never shortened. Shall I remember or forget, Gurpal? You never let me turn my head once to have a last look. I endured Barima's beatings, Gurpal's abuse, the hardship of hunger, my eye fixed on a remote hope, like a flickering lamp, that perhaps Baya would come to Sangrao in search of me, and I would smirk at Barima and go off with my brothers, without so much as looking at Gurpal. That day the breeze, playing among the neem leaves, would sing anthems and the whole village would celebrate. Why do we all think ourselves the center of the universe? Who knows? We blink in search of light until our eyes are inured to darkness and dreams. Hopes, like stray thoughts, revolve around my heart. Money was born, and the chains around my heart loosened. The troop of surrounding hopes was dispersed, and I started to wake even in my dreams. Occasionally a word from me resounded in the songs of Sangrao. When the two countries reached agreement, Gurpal was depressed, subdued and worried. He and Barima sat in the courtyard talking about who knows what, but neither said anything to me. In those days money toddled and lisped, the news flew noisily and settled, like a whirlwind. No army came to fetch me. Then I heard that the other country's soldiers had sought out their girls and were taking them back. Where? To which country, after all? To which people? I'd wondered at the time. Perhaps Baya will come looking for me. They'd been expecting me for ages at the door of the magic land. I should go, definitely. I gathered the bundle of my hopes each day and looked longingly at the turn at the end of the street. That year in winter, the soldiers came to Sangrao to fetch me. Besides, being Baya's sister, I'm also Money's mother. And I wondered, who knows who these people are, what that land is like. For the first time in my life, my faith faltered. The land of my dreams crumbled to dust and vanished from in front of me. My roots have dug deep into the soil of Sangrao. Whoever wants to dry up, wither, and be destroyed. Every girl has to leave her parents' home and go to her husband's. Every bride marries and moves elsewhere. So what, if Baya and Bai weren't present at my departure? Gurpal had spread a welcome carpet of corpses for me, reddened my path with blood, sacked town upon town to make fireworks for my wedding. People had celebrated my bridal night with screams and shouts and toing and froing. The whole atmosphere was infused with the smell of dust and smoke and blood, in accordance with the new traditions. He had brought me to Sangrao, among the fields of wheat, to a mud cell where I would spend the rest of my life in a house filled with the blue smoke of cow dung. How long I had looked, after all these years, at the words on the pages of the book that Gurpal brought to read to Money. And the words throbbed in my eyes. I suddenly recalled the stories Baya and Bai had told me, saying, Bibi, there are books with even better tales than these. Just get older, and you'll see what enjoyable things there are to read. When the army came to rescue me like the princess of fairy tales, I hid. Why should I go with someone strange? I ask you. Why aren't Baya and Bai here to collect me and see me off? Inside, I grew disheartened with them. I'm still upset. As Money lies beside me, she asks, Ma, why don't you go to Mama's house, even at Diwali? Why doesn't Mama ever send us sweets? Mama didn't even set out to find me Money. They never came to rescue me. Who can find time to wander in search of someone else? Slowly, love finds crutches. Baya's kids must be Money's age. When they ask about visiting their mama, he won't have to change the subject as I do, to keep a secret. Sometimes there are stories inside which can't be brought to the tongue. So, when the brides of this street work their spinning wheels, singing songs in the shade of the neem trees, I keep quiet. How much life there was in our courtyard. How much sweetness there is in parental melodies. The seasons change. Year on year, fathers and brothers come to see off the brides, and Asha, Rekha, Purna and Chandra's feet don't stay on the ground. Their words sound like songs. Seasons keep changing. The girls come out of their rooms and ask about their brother's arrival. My heart beats in my throat, and a nerve strains near my heart. It might burst. I extend my hand to chase away a crow, and it falls dead beside me. Barima's hopes of me. When I broke all links with my past life, Barima and I formed a deeper bond. I have become her Lakshmi Bahu, her lucky daughter-in-law. She shows off the yarn spun by me with great affection. And when other women complain about their daughters-in-law, she spurs their resentment by singing my praises. The fragrance of the grain meandering through the fields and the scent of the moist young wheat blend with the blue smoke and become a song, the sheltering sky filled with stars, single or in pairs, and the water in the spring, twisting into tiny waves, are all its words. If one day a youthful rider arrives, behind the peasants carrying bundles of fodder on their heads for the bullocks, and dismounts by my open doors, I will cry, Baya, and hug him. Who have I stood waiting for at this door? How long after the death of my dear ones must I carry the corpses? Looking at these tortuous roads, the tears start spontaneously to my eyes. If these tears fall on Money, she'll get up, anxious, and ask, Ma, why are you crying? How will I explain my grief to Money if she asks, Ma, why are your eyes wet, even on Desira night? Are you tired? Gurpal has hoisted both boys onto his shoulders. Money and I are going to Sangrao. Sita has accepted Ravana's sanctuary instead of a second exile. From where can I muster a second bout of incredulity to use as a crutch to support my faith? The lights of life have distanced themselves from me like the lights of that town behind me, but I'm still unable to love the darkness. Who knows why? I've got to keep walking. Exhaustion is like a pain in every part of my body. But still, I've got to keep walking. In life's fair, exiles and grove dwellers are forced to move on, and I comply, wondering if Baya were ever sad for me. I'm most scared of Money. Tomorrow she'll ask me the question again, and again no one will be able to answer it. Not Gurpal, nor I, nor, probably, Barima. Why are so many questions like that, so onerous and difficult, that can't be answered by anyone? The long winter night's pain kindles a fire and recalls old dreams and listens to tales. Tell me, can tales be true? My heart is so willful it won't forget the past. Is there any knowledge beyond Sangrao? In the high and low streets of the village, the stench of urine and cow dung, mixed with the smell of grain, flows on with life's torrent. Today is over. The day's in like gusts of wind. Who knows how much of the journey remains?